Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the USL show. Hey, look, it has been a little bit since I've been on, but hey, last week, John and Ryan absolutely, held it down. It was another great episode. I love going back and listening to those. It's always a good time. Ryan, never got to tell you, hey, congratulations on the job. Never got a chance to do that in person, so congrats.
Thank you.
And you have a nice little kid on that is a little foreshadowing for what's to come. But God, I love that one. That one's such a classic. That one and the pink one are some of my favorites. John, how are you?
Yeah, doing well. I'm excited for what we got tonight. Happy to have you back. Happy to not just have a two-man panel.
Absolutely. And there might be a reason why there might be more than just two people this week. But hey, we'll I guess get into that in a little bit. Phil, how you doing?
I'm good. Excited to be back. Excited to contribute. And excited for our guests. Should be a fun one.
And Ryan, I guess I didn't ask how you were. I just said that you had a nice shirt and congrats. So how are you?
I'm doing well. Officially have moved to Charlotte. So new location, new spot, but excited for this week's episode.
Beautiful. Hey, maybe you can go down to some independent matches. We can get some live stuff on the ground and, so on and so forth. You and Gio need to for sure get together at some point. So, yeah, I mean, hey, this was a busy week in the USL. There's a lot of craziness. I'm just going to just get it off my chest because I'm tired of hurting. Jake McGuire had the craziest goalkeeper performance I've seen in a long time, and shout out to him for that. Also, Charlotte, good. North Carolina, good. I mean, it's all there, It was a good week. It was a good week for the USL. But yeah.
I don't want to discuss anything that happened after the 90th minute in El Paso. So as far as I'm concerned, that game ended 1-0. So it's all good.
It's a 1-0 to me. Well, look, we are going to immediately jump into our tactics show this week, which is on Fidel Barajas. So let's go ahead and jump straight into that.
In world football, and what he did this weekend to push Charleston back into second place in the Eastern Conference shows why he earned that distinction. Barajas started on the right wing, and he scored a brace in this game that ultimately got his team the win, but it was what he did in every other phase of the game that made this a performance that highlights why he is so good. You're going to see one of the goals here, where Charleston dropped their striker in on a long restart, and Barajas tucks in between opposing center backs, does really well to win that ball, and then absolutely goes to work. He's so precise with the ball at his feet. He's very two-footed, and he's able to do that with the shot. That curl is absolutely excellent. But really, it's the movement and the way that he interacts in that 4-2-3-1 that's so effective for the Battery. There you see him tucking underneath that number 10 player, drawing the midfield and opening up space. Often Barajas will sit more narrow, opening overlaps for our fullbacks like Derek Dodson. This is how Charleston is so effective. Barajas is able to power them with narrow positions like this to have a much more varied attack that can beat you in a whole bunch of ways. Yes, he's going to score the curlers, but he's opening up his teammates to have similar opportunities. Moreover, he's a fiend in the counterpress. You're seeing it here, where Barajas is closing down very aggressively against the opposing players after the Battery lose the ball in the attacking third. Of course, he's good at tracking back. Barajas has a very underrated work rate in my estimation, and he also uses those deep positions when he does track back to carry the ball and lead breaks. Ultimately, it came together on his second goal that was the winner. You're going to see him counterpress to start the sequence. Charleston is able to collect the ball, and they go to work from there. There's a bit of a lag in time before Barajas gets his next touch, but the Battery never lose possession after he forces that bad clearance. By the time he collects the ball at the far post, he's going to be in position to beat the defender yet again, inverting inside for an absolutely insane curler. This is why the Battery are a real threat down the stretch. With Barajas and the freedom that he provides in that 4-2-3-1, this is a team to watch.
I mean, TLDR, Fidel Barajas is kind of good at the soccer thing. I don't know who needs to know that, but sort of decent at it.
Big if true.
Massive true. But there is somebody that the secret is out that probably knows a little bit more about Barajas than like any of us. And we are so excited to be joined by a special guest who has gone all the way from coaching, in the college ranks up to amateur, all the way to being professional. USL Coach of the Year last year, and is one of the main catalysts of the biggest turnaround in USL Championship history in a 31-point swing. The man of the Low Country, Ben Pirmann. Ben, how you doing?
Doing well. Thank you guys for having me.
Well, hey, listen, I don't want to just berate you a question straight away, but hey, yeah, this Fidel Barajas kid, he's pretty decent to be around. Just I guess general growth through this season because he came out with this like youth World Cup like a man possessed, and then he's only just gotten better. What's it been like watching him in training?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Fidel is a very talented player, one of the most competitive athletes, footballers I've ever been around. He missed all of preseason. He arrived back from the World Cup qualifying a couple days before our last preseason match. We knew we wanted to get him 45 minutes, and we just kind of looked at each other on the bench, and we were like, we weren't really going to rely on him this season, and we just looked at each other and we're like, okay, this guy's got something. So, he gets better and better every week. You mentioned there in the tactical breakdown about his work rate out of possession, the counter pressing. He's a competitor. He has that aspect to it. He doesn't even turn 18 for 10 months. So he's a good player. He's a really good joy to coach. The other thing is he's a really fun teammate. Guys like him. He's got good banter. He's mature. He's wise beyond his years. So it's been very enjoyable for me and the coaches to coach him. I think for the players to play with him, and he just, the most important thing, which most people around our club I think have, is that he just wants to win.
And yeah, I mean, that big winning thing, we kind of mentioned it. You're currently tied for the biggest point swing in a single season at 31 points in USL Championship history. I said you're going to break the record. I'm knocking on everything that I can find, but safe to assume you guys are, again, sort of decent at the soccer thing, and it's probably going to be broken. Going from Memphis, where you had a massive turnaround there, and you've been obviously one coach of the year, going to Charleston, which needed work. What do you think was the biggest change that really happened from Charleston when you got there to now?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was we just wanted to implement our identity. We've had kind of planned out the processes over weeks and our cycles throughout the season, but also hopefully potentially over the course of a few years and longer term years. For us, we wanted to make sure that from the get-go we were really tough to play against. Probably the guy that should win the coach of the year this year, Bob Lilly, since I've been able to be a head coach 3 seasons, I've tried to take as much from him as possible. His teams are miserable to play against. They don't make mistakes. They don't hurt themselves. In soccer in general, probably outside of the highest level of Champions League and Man City and these types of things, you have to be a team in order to compete, to not hurt yourself. So, that's one of the things that we wanted to change straight away, was just making sure that we were prepared to make sure that we could go into every game giving ourselves the best chance to win. And that takes a lot of hard work, takes a lot of focus. But the players have been incredible with that. It's been very rewarding for the group. And like you said, we got 3 games to go to try to keep pushing.
Yeah, and you mentioned trying to instill the philosophy at the club. I think a big part of that has been bringing Trey Muse with you, getting Derek Dodson, Chris Allen. How influential were those guys in kind of setting the tone philosophically? All 3 of them have been a big part of the team this year. So how important was having a bit of continuity as you made that transition?
Yeah, it was really big. And then if you kind of consider Hanwala Buana, who tore his ACL in preseason, was a very good player. And then we were able to add Mark Segbers late last week. So, I kind of use the term like the devil, is a little bit more comfortable type thing. The players who understand the requirements, the expectations, you could make the argument. Chris Allen has been our most consistent player. Derek Dodson's been one of our top performers. And You touched on Fidel Barajas, Tristan Traeger's been turned on. Our back line's been doing very well. So for us, it's more about the environment that we want to create every day in training. I use the term a lot, iron sharpens iron, where we push on each other. We want the training sessions to be more difficult than the matches because there's 23 other teams in this league, and almost every single team in this league is spending money now to win championships. No disrespect to the MLSB teams a few years back, but this league is very tough. I watched San Diego play Vegas the other day, and it was 50-50 game. We played Loudon. We very easily could have lost 2 weeks ago. So every game's tough. Every game is a proverbial battle. So in order to be able to achieve what we want, in order to play our best football, you want to players that can hit the ground running. Those guys have been tremendous. You mentioned Trey having a top class season in the back. So for us, it's about just building on that and taking it one day at a time.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned a couple of players that I really wanted to hit on. I mean, going from last year where the attack for Charleston was largely just Augie, that it was Augie's down there somewhere, and he made magic happen. You have Traeger, you have Augie, you have you have Barajas, you have a lot of talent up there. And while the offense still does feel like that if you need to get the goal that Augie Williams is going to be the guy, it still feels like that. It also doesn't feel like it falls on one person's shoulders. Is that something that you have been active in instilling, or is that truly just a team culture of any of us can score and we're cool with that?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think you use the term the team culture there. We try to create an environment where everybody's thriving and pushing on each other. It comes from our training methodology. For us, one of the philosophies that we try to do is, like, if I left, I was gone, just the club would continue to keep going. And then if I came back straight into it, things would keep going. If a player, knock on wood, gets injured or international duty, which we've had a lot, you basically want to be things to continue to cycle through. And, although you never wish for a red card or an injury or, a player going out on international duty is a special moment. But those are opportunities for other players that maybe train well that just didn't get selected or something. We've had injuries happen and players just continue to step up and perform. The way we try to bring that out is through a selfless kind of approach, whether that's putting the team first, whether that's playing different positions. And you mentioned whoever's scoring the goals. A lot of times teams will target Augustine Williams, so we've got to go through Nick Marcanic. We've got to go through, our fullbacks, a restart, you name it. For us, it's all about our processes that try to make us to arrive at those moments. And really, hopefully, it's just kind of plug and play. Whoever's going is the next man up to perform.
I feel like a lot of what you've talked about speaks to the fact that you've built teams with a lot of depth. I know this year, like just an attack, say you're missing Williams to national duty. Beto Avila has been awesome in that role. Nick Marcanic has been big as well. What's your philosophy to scouting? How involved are you with that? Like, for instance, what you did with Jeremy Kelly, where you bring him in and then you change up his game a little bit, or you take someone like a Marcanic who was a player that showed a lot of potential and you're really bringing the best out of him at this level. How do you identify players? How involved are you in that? And how much of the development process do you consider yourself responsible for?
Yeah, the biggest thing, between myself, our coaching staff, Devin Rensing, Lee Wiedman, and then our president, Lee Cohen, we have what I would say is our kind of recruitment model. We really focus on North American-based players. There's one player, Juan Palma, that we recruited from Colombia. He's the first and only player I've ever, quote, imported. Now, we have a lot of international players, but most of them we've seen live or we've seen in leagues that we're very comfortable with. The second thing we do is, when my assistant Devin Rensing was working with Sporting Kansas City as a scout, they used the term high energy, high character. So we really focus on players, that maybe sometimes have a chip on their shoulder. We're at an MLS team or a 2 team, didn't get the run out. They got something to prove. Maybe it's a player who is maybe less focused on a bigger contract, more focused on scoring goals and winning games. And, chasing girls around town, stuff like that. We want players that have that good balance, that have that focus of doing whatever it takes to win games. The kind of final piece to it is obviously the ability to play multiple positions. Robbie Crawford's been at this club forever. I've played him at left wing, center forward, number 10, outside of probably center back, which I'm sure he'll play there at some point. He's been left back lately before a little bit of an injury. So, we want to get to the point where we can be a little bit more concise in our recruitment, 3 or 4 players per year, making little upgrades. But, you reference coming from Memphis, it was kind of new recruitment classes 2 years in a row, and then the first year here in Charleston. So hopefully we can retain a lot of our players. We have guys locked down for a long time, and we want this to be a destination where people arrive and say, hey, I want to build a life here, have a family here, and try to compete to ultimately at some point, try to compete to win trophies.
Ben, talking about the recruitment strategy, it kind of makes me think too about how you prepare your current squad for like upcoming games and how you scout your opponents. I have a specific interest in this, being a Locomotive fan and knowing how you're going to prepare for this game coming up. But like with that being said, preparing for each opponent in USL, it feels like there's obviously a lot of different play styles, a lot of variance in terms of like player availability, all that sort of stuff. So how do you guys go about preparing, and what I guess what are those main things you're looking for to prepare against an opponent, especially one that maybe is going through maybe a rough patch or something like that? But how do you prepare for those games and keep sharp?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Every club is going to be different. Every coach is going to be different. For me, one thing that we're pretty non-negotiable with is, like, I use the term fit and alignment. Everything needs to fit us. It's about the Charleston Battery. It's about what we want to do. Now, I would be crazy to not know our opponent inside and out. Interestingly enough, El Paso is one of the teams that I know the least about, probably because, they're a lot. I try to watch as many games as possible, not as much as John watches, but, I try to watch as many as possible. So I haven't seen them a ton, probably maybe 5-6 times this season. And then in the last, since Saturday night, I've probably watched 4 or 5 of their games. We try to tie everything together. We have our principles, we have our philosophies, our platforms in which we want to play, and we're kind of non-negotiable with certain things, but we also know exactly, or we want to know exactly how our opponent this week, El Paso, the following week, Miami, and then Birmingham, everybody's different. Every game, whether it's on the road, maybe a team's fighting for their playoff lives, maybe a team's got a guy out or two. So for us, we try to make it fit. I don't want to say we're going to go out and do the same thing every single game, but at this point in the season, it's about maintenance. It's about making sure we're really fine into our small little details, because we know how good El Paso are. We know 4 or 5 of those players can go into any team in this league and be major stars. One of the toughest places in the league to play. So for us, it's combining those moments to make sure that we're prepared for our opponent, but we're also making sure that we're really dialed into what we need to execute.
Well, I want to ask a quick
go
question.
for it.
Oh, sorry. If you had a follow-up, Phil.
No. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay, so I have a question for you, and this is one that I'm going to preface with, you do not need to comment on the direct situation, but I'm asking a general question. Earlier this year, there was a player that you're familiar with Philip Goodrum, who apparently had an opportunity to move to a higher league, did not get that opportunity, and was very publicly upset about it, right? And while I'm not asking you to comment on that situation, how do you balance that as a coach between, I want to win games, I need to win games, that's like my whole job, but also I need to sell players on in order to get as good, if not even better players in? How do you balance the having to sell not only just to keep a club running, but also to get even better players in and trying to win games?
No, it's a tough one, and obviously specific to Phil, he and I are close. I recruited him pretty hard, even the year before, trying to get him on loan from Atlanta. Phil's an emotional player. He is as hard as working as a player I've ever coached. You love playing with him and being on your team. You hate playing against him. He's the worst. So that probably brings a little bit of context to it as well. But I go back to probably what's each identity of the club. We have a player, Fidel Barajas, who in the next probably 12 to 24 months, we'll move on somewhere. Every club's different. Orange County's is about as good as there is in our league. There are certain clubs. Louisville is one of the best, if not the biggest and best club in this league. They've had the same 17 players for the last 7 years. There's a reason they win. So every club's a little bit different. For that situation, I think when you do so well in a second tier, we have a unique structure in this country, not to get into promotion relegation, but
why not?
we were the number 3 team in the league last year. We would have been promoted. He would have had that natural opportunity. So it's really just up to the club. And for us at our club, our number one pillar is about respect. So we have conversations, we communicate. We here at the Charleston Battery, we can't just let players go for free because they want to go to something bigger and better. But also in terms of, if we're doing our jobs correctly, like I said, if somebody has that opportunity to move on to MLS or Europe or make a bigger contract and it helps the club from a financial standpoint, or just from a human being standpoint, I think that's something that we should all be proud of. And like I said earlier, if you fit it back and keep total alignment, usually it's the next man up. If player A goes out of the lineup, player B is getting a chance, and maybe they can be even better, because you see that all over the place. Brighton's is, in the Premier League, they're as good as there are where they're selling massive players for hundreds of millions, and then the next guy that they bought for $500,000, top of the league in his position.
For sure.
Well, talking about the structure and some of like differences in clubs, things like that, it makes me think about your journey here to Charleston, really, because obviously starting in the collegiate management and then working your way up through building through Detroit City and then on to Memphis and now Charleston, you have a little bit of a unique story in that you have history with clubs in this league, which is not really a normal or a very common thing. So I guess first off, how do you see the ecosystem for managers and coaches in the US, given that the structure is what it is and you kind of find your way through that? And then I guess the second part, just what is it like having to then deal with kind of the repercussions of moving between teams in the league and having some places you go where you may not be like the most popular character, or may be a little bit of a pantomime villain, in Detroit?
Yeah, no, I can take on the role of being the villain in more than one city in the Midwest. For me, like Michigan State University is kind of my home. I played there for 5 years, coached there for 8 years. My wife played soccer there. We got married in the soccer stadium. We kind of bleed green. While I was coaching there, I was also fortunate enough to be able to coach Detroit City for 6 seasons, which really helped my development, helped me branch out, see the sport in a little bit different of a lens. And then I went to Memphis. So being a part of 3 different clubs in the league is a little bit unique, but I also think in professional sports and in USL championship is arriving to whether it's player sales, the quality of, football being played, the stadiums that are being built, the young players, even your guys as yourselves, like the media coverage, like it is becoming high level. And part of that is accountability. Part of that is just naturally in sport, you might play against some old clubs. I love my time at Detroit City. They were tremendous people. Still very close friends with them. Their fans, in my opinion, are the toughest, most difficult place to play in the league. And twice now we've gone there and they've been pretty kind to me. So I can't complain too much. Even going back to Memphis this summer, the fans were very kind to me. They booed me a little bit during the game, but they're still friends. I really enjoyed my 4 years in Memphis, not just at the club, but in the community. And I've only been here just under 10 months, but my wife and I have loved our time here in Charleston. So, I'm pretty singular focused in terms of, my family and the football aspect. So, we really just try to push on and do the best that we can, both on and off the field. And Charleston's been nothing but amazing for me, and we've really enjoyed it. And hopefully can continue to do so for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because the places that you've been around to, I mean, Detroit City is no slouch, obviously, when it comes to fan support, right? And with Memphis, as much as it hurts me and everything to say, there's a bit of a sleeping giant there, right? I mean, we saw the fans show up. Like when they get out there, they are loud and proud. But when it comes to lower division support in this country, it doesn't get much more storied than the Battery, right? The history of the Battery is, while it's short in the grand scheme of things of like Europe, for the US, it's very rich. And, since you've been there, like they've added in the new stands, they've added in, more places to sit. And the Low Country and Patriots Point is rocking in a way we haven't seen it in a little while. Was that a little bit of the pull to Charleston as well? It's like, I mean, we have Ryan, we have other guys who we play video games. Like we do the Football Manager, the FIFA. It's like bring up the sleeping giant yet again. Was that a little bit of an emotional pull there as well?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, I think if you look at, most soccer coaches probably have the same mindset I do. I'm selfish. I want to win, so how can you go about winning? Obviously there's the ability to pay players and bring in the best roster. There's all these types of things. You're not going to find a better place in this country to live and have a lifestyle than Charleston, South Carolina. You talked about the history of the club. Whether it was the old Blackbaud Stadium, the U.S. Open Cup runs, the championships, Coach Augie, who did a tremendous job here for so long, and then the third piece of it, as well as the history, was the people around the club. Our owner and chairman, Rob Salvatore, a tremendous human being, just wants to win. He loves being a kind person. He's a very gracious human being. Our president, Lee Cohen, I craved that type of leadership to have full fit and alignment from top to bottom and bottom to top at a club. Our players and probably, like you said, most importantly through it all, are our supporters. They probably have kind of gone through a couple rough spells there in the last couple of years. They've been nothing but tremendous. We lost the game 7-0 at home. I was so embarrassed. And they were just so kind to me, and they're like, hey, we got this. Let's go next one. So, hopefully that never happens again, but it is a genuine, they've seen it all. They've been here. I've met more than, half a dozen season ticket holders that have been around for 25, 30 years. And all they want to do is support this club and this community. And in my opinion, that's what football's about. That's what it's about in Europe, South America, you name it. It doesn't matter if you're a second tier club, doesn't matter if it's amateur, doesn't matter if you're, in a small part of town. But for me, that's what football is about, is being able to express yourself on the pitch and then tying in a community off of it.
Looking ahead to the 2024 season, especially since we're kind of at the business end of this current year, Charleston has 3 more games left in the regular season, plus a potential playoff run moving forward. How does future planning for the next season kind of look like at this stage? And does the duration of your playoff run kind of change the thought process or the squad building for next year, such as winning the USL title versus potential or making the Eastern Conference final?
Yeah, that's a good question. One of the things I keep kind of referencing is the quality of our league. Whether it's the broadcast, the media coverage, the quality of players. The one of the big things that really helped tilt this is, in this concept of minor league soccer or second tier football, players used to be, the player wage bill used to be like, the number one hit on a budget. And let's be honest, these owners spend a lot of money out of their pockets. It's tough. Like we ain't writing the checks. They're the ones doing it. Now that the mindset has changed, that the players are assets. Whether you're selling, whether it's like, hey, we want to pay this guy a little bit more money because of how much he does for our club. So when I came into the league in 2019, it was 8 to 10 months. You're in, you're out. Go find your new club. What can I get the best contract possible? Now it's like a proper football. It's proper club. Whether it's signing young players, whether it's developing players through the youth setup, whether that's signing players to say, hey, doesn't matter what the system is, how long we want these players here over a course of time. That aspect has been massive. What that does is I think these off seasons are now really going to get packed together. You take the fact that there's a CBA, and you got to get your recruitment right. You got to be able to put your time in. There's so many high level coaches in this league. They do their business with the scouts. They do their business. Nobody's getting surprised at anything. So the way that we personally want to build our roster is, in June, the free agents are available to discuss contracts with. You want to be able to identify a position here, position there. If you're signing 10, 12, 13 guys, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. If you can get upgrades and you can do this, or you can, guys retire, or maybe you need a younger player. So for me, how long the season lasts really shouldn't go into it. But it's crazy. Like I use this term every single year. We almost always sign our best player, after April 1st. There's always something crazy that happens. You look at, Oluwaseyi from San Antonio. They get him into the season. My first season in Memphis, we got Cam Lindley middle of April. Every year, you mentioned Jeremy Kelly. That was a month into the season last year in Memphis. All these things are crazy. So you want to, as much as you try to plan and do things the way that our transfer windows are a little bit more liberal, you want to make sure you're keeping an eye on everything. But I think our season, we're fully focused on 2023. No offense, Phil. The only thing that matters to us is having our best season on Saturday. And then
nothing can hurt me now, Ben.
Yeah,
I'm dead inside. Nothing more can hurt me. So it's all good.
Win, lose or draw on Saturday, we're just fully focused for Miami. So we've been talking about it as a team. We only have 270 regular season minutes left. You go at this for 10 months and you're now down to, a couple sitcoms worth of football left. So for me, we're just focused on enjoying it, getting a little bit better, and then hopefully making Phil's life miserable on Saturday.
For no particular reason, I think you should rest the players on the final game of the season. Again, no particular reason. Listen, only a couple more questions, but kind of talking about the club itself. Charleston Battery have just come out with their breast cancer awareness and American Cancer Society kits and shirts that you can auction, do the whole thing. Our big thing here was kit season, so check those out. And also in our link is going to be direct fundraising donation page. So tell them, put it in there, hey, Charleston Battery USL show, we're all going in on this together, so check that out in the description. And hey, they're really nice kits, so check those out. I got two quick questions for you. The first one is Dante Polvara. Dude scores for Aberdeen. I mean, he's with you for a little bit. I mean, is it kind of a surreal feeling seeing a guy that you coach score in a UEFA competition?
Yeah, I mean, it was exciting. I'm proud for Dante. It's football's a fickle sport. Things get taken away, as we've seen during COVID or injuries or all these different things. So he needed an opportunity where he was getting a string of games and he had to come in and earn it. Played really well for us, and then went back in and tore it up during preseason, and now he's been getting a lot of opportunities there. So we're proud of him. We talk a lot in our club about attitude and effort, and if you have a good attitude, you're a good teammate, and you work your tail off, I think a lot of positive things can happen. And like you said, he's now doing it in a European Cup competition, and for me, that's tremendous. I mean, what a feeling for a young player like that.
And for the last question, well, I guess there's two more questions. I was a liar, but last main question, totally off topic. We all know about your shoe game. What's the latest pair of Jordans that you've gotten?
It was a birthday present. My birthday was a week ago, and my wife got me a pair of Jordans, my first ever pair of lows. So I'll have to break them out coming out, but at the beginning of the season, we got a big win. I think it was against Tampa. And I went home that night and I rewarded myself and bought myself a new pair of sneakers. And then we got another big win or something. I was like, man, if we're going to keep winning these games, I'm going to run out of money. But yeah, I like my sneakers. I like my Jordans. I like those. But obviously I like winning the most. So if that helps us win, I'll take it.
Who's the football player that buys a pair of Jordans of the team color that he just beats? There's a player out there that buys Jordans and with the colors of every team he beats. Are you jumping on that train?
No idea. To be honest, I'm not a really big avid sports follower outside of our sport. I try to consume as much of this. So Taylor Swift's kind of drawn my attention to the NFL the last few days. That's about it.
You and me both. Is there a slight competition that you have? You look over and you're like, dress better than that guy. Do you ever have the thought?
I've become pretty good friends with Juan Guerra at Phoenix.
I was so hoping you were going to go there.
He's fit and he's good looking dude. He's got the best outfits and all this. Like I'll take my kicks over anybody's in the league. But I'm not a very well dressed person. I'm like, let's throw on a pair of jeans and in a hoodie or something and go for it. But he's pretty good on down the other end of the touchline.
Which is what I respect about your dress game is that I see you on the sideline and I think I could do that.
I don't know if that's a compliment or a piss take, but I like it.
The real snub here is Bob Lilly. You mentioned should have been manager of the year, fits of the year as well on the touchline. Just unbeatable in the khakis.
Bob don't care. He's doing whatever he wants, and I respect him for it because he is so focused on his team and winning. He couldn't care less about anything else going on.
When we found out that you were coming on, I was doing a little bit of research, and boy, was the jarring experience of seeing you in a full suit coaching Detroit City as opposed to now. Where did the suit go? Why are we not doing that anymore? What's going on today?
When I was at Detroit City, one of the front office workers told me, oh, you have to wear a shirt and a tie. It's a league rule and all this. In the first game, I did it, and our owner kind of came down and was like, what are you doing? It's warm out and this and this. I was like, oh, I thought I had to wear a shirt and tie. And this, he's like, oh, no, you just have to wear a collared shirt and slacks. But we won the game, so I was like, well, I'm not changing now. So it was about 8 or 10 games into a season in Memphis where we lost a couple in a row. And I was like, all right, no more shirt and tie. I'm going to do something different. And then it's slowly gotten sloppier and sloppier, as my wife says. So now it's just kind of whatever the footwear is and throw anything else on.
Oh, man. You kind of mentioned that Taylor Swift has brought you to the NFL a little bit, but our final question that we ask everybody that comes on the show, what's on your TV that's not soccer?
Ooh, that's interesting. My wife and I love a lot. This might be a little bit more, but a lot of true crime, a lot of murder mysteries. And then lately in the background for us, it's been some Vampire Diaries. Got to get a little bit of the love stories going.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Well, do you have any final comments for any of the USL fans or just Charleston Battery fans out there in general before we let you go?
No, I mean, anytime I do a media call, I always try to make sure I thank you guys. I like I said, I said this before, our league's getting stronger and stronger. And, I know you guys probably don't get paid a whole lot to do stuff like this. So, myself, I know the other coaches around the league, the fans really appreciate everything you guys do and your coverage. My wife will wake up at 5:30 on a Sunday morning and be like, where's John's tactical analysis? She's looking for it. So I appreciate it. I know a lot of people around here appreciate it. Hopefully you guys understand how much everybody appreciates what you guys do.
Well, we appreciate you, Ben. Thank you so much for hopping on.
All right. Thanks again, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Ben.
Didn't mean to cut him off like that. I just cut him off. See, hey, it is what it is. Hey, that was a fun chat. Chat. Would have never
absolute
taken
joy when he echoes the opinion that we all have that Juan Guerra is a hottie.
Oh, for sure. Also, would never have taken Ben Pirmann as Vampire Diaries guy. Never.
Swifty, Vampire Diaries, like he contains multitudes. The one question I had wardrobe wise was, is that hoodie available in the Charleston team store? Because that was sick, like with the stripes on the sleeves, on the wrist. Yeah, that was sick. Anyways,
Clemens, if you're still listening to this, please hook us up. So
we take bribes at the USL show.
No, I just want a link. I don't even care if you discount it. Just send me the link. I mean, listen, there's not much better than going down to Charleston. He said, like, oh, it's great being down in Charleston. Last time I went down to Charleston, I had an absolute blast. And I was like, man, imagine living here. So
My brother just went
To,
down there on vacation and just had the best time. Yeah.
I can attest that Charleston is a really good time, and living on the coast is something that's a lot of fun.
yeah, can't relate.
I at the risk of this just being a talk back about the interview that we just had, which I'm not
why
sure
not?
people are necessarily, but like, there was something so jarring about hearing Kaylor, Ryan, and Ben all in a relatively similar geographic area with 3 completely different accents. The one of which, obviously being from Detroit, is a very familiar one to me, and there's just something so jarring about him saying like I'm in Charleston, South Carolina, in a Detroit accent. Like it was very that was funny to me.
I mean, I've lived in the South since 2008, and I still haven't developed anything of an accent down here. I was born in Ohio, so
I have to fight it. If I came on this show sounding like I did when I was 18 years old, I would be kicked off immediately. It was awful. My first day, or one of my first days at the University of Alabama, I was doing marching band, and there was, I don't know if they have them up north, I don't know, but fire ant hill. Like there was a bed of like a fire ants, and I stepped in them. I didn't realize it. They started biting me, 50, 100 of them all over my leg biting me. And I called them far ants, not fire ants, far ants. And that was a normal thing for me to say. And it was not great. I had a whole bunch of people staring at me because they're like, what is a far ant? And I'm like, it's these little red devils. They're trying to kill me. Like, get them off.
Meanwhile, you're just dying. And
yeah. But, hey, it's fine. It's fine. The accent, we're working on it. But yeah, I kind of hate how likable he is because, like, it's one of those things. It's like when he was with Memphis, I wanted to hate him and I couldn't. And I was like, why do I like this guy? I want to hate this guy.
Well, and it is funny, like mentioning the history with Detroit City and all that stuff. Like I joke that he's a villain, but in reality, like having been present at a game last year, Memphis, Detroit City, it is all kind of done tongue in cheek because the Detroit City fans have such history with him. So like they called him Caesar when he was there. So it was always Hail Caesar, all this stuff like in every game. Well, they started doing signs that just say Fail Caesar when he shows up. And it's like, it's one of those things where it's like still an homage while, obviously being kind of like tongue in cheek jokey of like, they want to beat him, but yeah, his comments about, still having good relationships with those teams. And I think like generally having a good reputation, with the exception of, one manager in the East who maybe doesn't take kindly, which we could see in the second round. And I almost asked him about Cruz Pirmann 3, but we'll see what
I think we all bit our tongue on that. Yeah.
Okay, I almost jumped in when he was like, "Oh, there's a reason why Lou City is like one of the best teams," and I was like, I
just I did the magic of live podcasting. Ben Clemens from Charleston Battery just replied to me on Twitter that sweatshirt will be available soon. Eyeball emoji. So that was a sneak peek of upcoming merch.
Ben
From Charleston
fashion
Battery.
model.
Yeah.
Imagine they just start posting pictures of him as the model, every single one of them. He's just having to model.
Now you're thinking.
I mean, Legion does it. They just get all of our players and just like wear this outside and we'll take a picture of it. It's like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Like half the pictures are Mikey Lopez and his dog. I'm here for
No
it.
complaints. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just show me the dog, to be honest. I don't know. I mean, it was definitely a fun chat. I mean, just kind of to wrap the Charleston bow all together from where we started. Assuming that MLS isn't the one that does it, I mean, Barajas is about to completely break the bank, right?
It feels like Europe certainly will be the move just because, I mean, MLS never wants to pay a transfer fee for anyone in the USL. They've shown time and again that in the latest batch of good young players, really Diego Luna is the only one who's gone to MLS that I'm thinking of. And it took him, and granted, he's succeeding immensely at RSL right now, but it took a while for him to break in. You can argue what's the ceiling there versus what he could do in Europe. Barajas feels like he's got the way that we talked about Josh Winder, or we talked about like Oshandina going over to Feyenoord. He could go to a big club and he'll command a fee, if not $1 million, something like that with bonuses.
Well, and I mean, bringing up Diego Luna as well, it's like limited opportunity a little bit up front in a sort of disjointed organization that paid a super cut rate to get him. Like, and it is, there's no variable of that, like, where I don't think players look at it as a like particularly appealing route. And the team, like Charleston, is definitely not going to be looking at $250,000 as anywhere near like what they would expect to get for Barajas. So that, and I don't think MLS teams by and large are willing to pay more than that when it comes to USL, because they're used to just reaching down into USL and picking out whoever they want for free. So this whole, we're going to pay money for exciting young talent is just that's not their thing.
There's a reason Milanowski is going to Nordjylland and not anywhere in MLS.
Exactly. Not up the road to San Jose or something like that. Right. Yeah.
I mean, you'll find a player like Barajas on the list of wonder kids for the next Football Manager game, especially if you're looking for those like really fun challenges of building teams with like just CONCACAF talent only. And if you've just seen the change within USL of these teams receiving these 7-figure transfer fees, and that's something that was transformative for some of these teams. We talk about just how much expensive there is to run one of these teams that could fund a team's majority of their budget for quite some time.
I said I was going to be it, but I just want to talk about it. The Barajas goal, the first one, the curled shot. Listen, I understand that there's been like 4 bicycle kick goals this year. We've had multiple screamers, free kick glories. That might be my favorite shot from this year. That curl around and through legs, and it didn't take a single deflection, just barely kissing off the bar. I mean, that's about as sexy as of a goal can get.
Seeing a soccer ball behave like a pool cue is just like crazy, because the fact that the ball doesn't leave the ground and still has like that spinning curl on it and still just maintains like that power through the entire life cycle of that shot, it's an unbelievable goal. And the second one too, it's just like technique for days. It's not like he has tons of time to shape either of those. Like, he's doing it under pressure, he's doing it in tight spaces. The kid is unbelievable. And like Ben said, I think it's like, enjoy it while it lasts, because he's going places.
Yeah. So if we want to quickly burn through these predictions, let's go ahead and run it up the road to Pirmann's former club.
If you'll note, you're going to notice a trend here across these first three predictions is all I'm going to say.
Let's go ahead and run it to the Circle City, where Indianapolis is taking on Detroit City. Indy still looking pretty good, but Detroit City maybe has found the sauce and is really fighting for that final playoff spot, because who isn't in the East? Who do we got?
I'll go ahead and start with it. Yeah, no worries. Indy missing Aiden Quinn these past couple games has really hurt what they're doing in the midfield. This team had hit a groove. They had gone 6 games undefeated. They'd started racking up the wins. There was the possibility of a home playoff game. You lose Quinn. You suffer a really dispiriting loss to RGV over the weekend. Something's got to give for the 11 right now. I like Detroit's form. The 3-0 win over Hartford, does that count? It's Hartford.
As an El Paso fan, I can say it definitely doesn't, just to be super clear. Hartford and Vegas wins do not count.
So Detroit, I don't trust that offense enough. I think they've got enough grind in them that this is going to be like the most defensive game you can imagine. So draw.
Ryan?
I have to back Indy 11 on this one. I think what's going to really drive a lot of the play style is what happens in tomorrow's Colorado Springs Detroit City match, because you could be looking at a Detroit team who's going to be potentially 2 points behind Indy 11 if they can beat Colorado Springs tomorrow, or they could be 5 points behind them entering this game. And I really think Indy 11 is going to enter this match, and in this game, which is going to end up being their final home game of the regular season, potentially of the year, they're going to want to put on a good performance for their fans and just punch their ticket to the playoffs here. So I have them winning this one.
Yeah, I have Indy winning as well, and I think it comes down to partially Detroit having to contend with, although it is at home, it's not like they're having to go across country for this Colorado Springs game, but they have to they're playing midweek against Colorado Springs and then turn around and go to Indy. I think this Indy team, I'm not as thrown off by the RGV result, just because RGV is a complete bogey for Mark Lowry. He, for whatever reason, like cannot beat them. And so I think they get back to winning ways. And like you said, John, I don't think the goal scoring's there for Detroit against serious teams in the league. Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, I'm backing Indy to get over the line, but I do think it's going to be close. Like, this is going to be a 1-0.
I kind of fooled around with this one. I wasn't too sure. I end up finding myself predicting things off of storylines. And I mean, Indy's in the playoffs, right? I know they haven't gotten the fancy graphic on USL. They're in the playoffs, right? So that said, Detroit City is fighting for their life, and I think there's a little bit of like that primal, like, we got to go for this no matter what. Like, we have to get all three. For some reason, that feels like it's going to lean Detroit City, especially as close as Detroit and Indy are, relatively speaking, for USL standards. There's still going to be a big contingency of Detroit fans, and so I think there's going to be a little bit of a home away from home situation going on. Not saying that Indy's going to be outsold, but still nice away contingency. So I'm taking Detroit. We are going to now take a trip up the I-22 from Birmingham up to Memphis, as Memphis failed to break the deadlock of 1-1 to share the spoils not too long ago. Now get to do it again now at AutoZone Park, where Memphis are starting Richard Sanchez? ?
I forgot. So, in the context of the listener, if you look at the goalkeeping numbers that I maintain, Richard Sanchez is the worst goalie in the league this year. Drew Romick, on the sly, is the third worst goalie in the league. So Memphis somehow got one of two players that they could have got if they wanted to downgrade in net, and they went and did it. They also announced it like 3 days after the roster freeze, so it just came off like bizarre. But 901 gonna 901. This is ironic because I think they're gonna win this game. Like, I think they've got what they need game plan wise to beat Birmingham, assuming that Aaron Malloy doesn't have to like just be part of the defense again, which granted he was fine, like, because Aaron Malloy does the job always, no matter what. But I do think that what Memphis does with that attack that can beat you in so many ways, that can leverage the width when it needs to, is going to give the Legion some problems, especially as Kaylor will get into, I'm sure, the way that Birmingham is a bit underwhelming despite a good weekend performance.
Yeah, I have Memphis winning this one, specifically since Memphis is playing at home and they're in the hunt for it, still controlling their destiny for having that home playoff game. They're neck and neck right now with Louisville, and to try and go and get a good result here against a Birmingham team that hasn't scored and on away from home in the last 395 minutes. I'll do another movie stat here. That's 94% of the Star Wars prequels. I just think everything is lining up for Memphis to win this game. So I have them beating the Legion.
I'd rather watch Attack of the Clones on repeat than play a game on that Ozone Park pitch.
I was gonna say if you start Legion's last few home matches in line with the Star Wars prequels, Anakin kills the younglings just as Prosper Kasim misses the latest chance. It's really crazy. Anyways, so it is a really this is such a weird matchup to try to predict because Birmingham's drop off has been so stark and so like, I don't want to say inexplicable because there's explanations, but it does feel like really crazy. While Memphis has sort of like, they've just done this up and down thing where they get a really good result followed by really crazy bad result followed by a really good result, and they're just like back and forth. And obviously beating Tampa 4-2, that is a significant win. DaCosta like hitting a hat trick. It feels like they've got the momentum. I'm backing Memphis just because I don't trust Birmingham, and I don't trust any team that takes 23 shots against Miami and doesn't score. So that is just how it plays out, unfortunately.
Not our fault they had Gigi Buffon in net. I don't know what to tell you.
He does make 12 saves. It was actually kind of insane.
Plus the penalty save, and they were nice saves too. Like these were not just like, oh, at the chest batted down. They were some stupid good saves. If Legion come out with the same attack that they did against Miami, they're going to score goals. I mean, there's no way you're going to get two performances like that in a row, even if it's just one. Just one goal, that's still more than against Miami. I think that Legion are going to try to bring in that same game plan because only taking 3 shots against Memphis in the most previous meeting probably can't happen again. And if it does, well, I mean, there's other conversations happening. I think if they come out with the same game plan, keep the same system, keep the same, tactical and like substitute decisions, or at least the 1-for-1 decisions, because there'll probably be a different squad that starts because this was a rotated squad. I think Legion's going to have success, and for those reasons, I'm taking Memphis.
Do you think we're going to get Agudelo in the middle and Enzo Martinez deep again, or is Tommy going to switch it up?
I think it depends who starts. If Nico is the one that starts, I think that Juan is going to be on the bench again. But Nico has been a little bit of a black hole, especially against Memphis. He just did not show up. So I wouldn't be shocked if Juan starts there. If that's where Juan starts, I think it depends on Corcoran. If Corcoran starts as well, because if so, I could see Enzo being pushed a little higher, like a shadow striker, like he was all year long. I think it just kind of depends on Matthew Corcoran and Nico Brett, whichever one they start. If it's the same lineup, I think they'll run the same exact thing that they did. So,
gotcha.
Hey, let's go and continue the Ben Pirmann tour, and we are going to go out to wonderful El Paso for El Paso and Charleston, which, hey, on the bright side, Phil, he knows the least about El Paso of any team. So that dub, right?
We'll get to it.
I'm going for a draw here. Despite the fact that we're really negative about El Paso, they looked pretty great against Phoenix for about 60 minutes before it turned into kind of a knockdown, drag out defensive kind of game. And say what you will about the kind of offside goal that Phoenix got at the end to score, but I digress there. But I like the way that the Locomotive are playing. They're getting the forwards much more engaged, and it's helping to strengthen them when they're building up down the middle of the field. I think that's important that they keep that up against a battery team that knows how to defend the midfield spaces really effectively. They get that effort from the wingers when they're tracking back. They're so well drilled because of what Pirmann does. I see a draw here because I think the Locomotive bring a level of desperation that Charleston may not have in an away game where they're in a pretty solid space. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Battery win, granted, but I think El Paso does enough to get a draw.
Yeah, I had selected a draw on this one as well. What had really stuck out to me and it's been very pronounced over the past few weeks, it's just been the the home form for El Paso has just been so challenging. I mean, June 14th was the last home victory they had, the 2-1 victory over Las Vegas Lights when Asteroid City was still in theaters. But in that time, in the 8 games they've
Good
had
movie,
at home
by the way.
since then,
Great
they've
movie.
scored in 7 of them. So it shows that they're still competitive enough in these games to stay involved. With Charleston going cross country, their most recent game there was going and getting a 1-0 victory over New Mexico. But then you also have to remember they had that 2-0 defeat against Orange County. So it's really a matter of how well do they adjust again to the travel. I think this will end up being another draw for both teams, but it's going to be a competitive match.
I'm locking Charleston, and here's why. No, I am, but it's because it's really because I really think we can get over the hump with this in this game. Like, I think so. Locomotive against Phoenix, for all the reasons that John said, and with some of the added context, Peter Knudsen, who they added, the first Faroese player to ever ply his trade in the States. He looked really, really rough the first couple of times that he ran out. Wasn't really getting on the ball at all. Wasn't really like even getting into spaces to receive the ball. That changed in this last game where he was making really intelligent runs. He was finding the space. It was all there minus the goal. Like, just the finish was the only thing lacking. So it was really promising from that aspect. There was a lot more involvement in attack from Eric Calvillo, which was refreshing because he's been kind of like on a leash most of the season. And the proactivity of the back three with Eric McHugh and Mark Navarro and Noah Dolenmeyer, who Dolenmeyer has been wonderful since coming. He's been one of Locomotive's best players in the few games that he has played. So the bottom line is that the pieces did start to feel like they were coming together. The attack finally showed signs of life. And I think like the decision making, and maybe some of it enforced, but the decision to like kind of stop chasing the game and really just try to hold out at 1-0 did hurt Locomotive. Like, I think that was regrettable, hindsight being 2020. I pick Charleston. I joke because I'm locking every single El Paso opponent until we get a frickin' win, like in these moments. But I do think Locomotive are in a decent spot. The question really for me is just mentality at this point of, can Locomotive actually put together like a complete 90 minutes and finish their chances and avoid these sort of like last minute errors. The one other thing that I will throw out there is Phoenix. I'm trying to remember. Was it Traore? Should have absolutely had a red card in this match as well. So there were some mitigating factors. But all that being said, like, Charleston is a super tough opponent. The one thing I will say for them in terms of pro El Paso mitigating factor for them, very, very narrow pitch in El Paso, which I think favors Locomotive in just kind of confining Battery's width that they love to exploit with their wingbacks and wide attackers. So I think that's probably the one thing working in Locomotive's favor against a really strong Battery team. And yeah, it was a little bit of there was a blip on the heart monitor of Locomotive last week, and unfortunately didn't get the full 3 points. But the signs of life are there, so I am a little encouraged after last week.
I do this almost every time. Every time I watch a game, pretty much in the USL, I'll just basically find one player to fixate on, and I'm like looking up their entire life story, and like I'm on their Wikipedia, I'm on their like Y Scout, I'm like trying to find everything, and I just do this every time. I just find one player and fixate. And last week when I watched El Paso, it was Mark Navarro. Like, I feel like we don't talk about enough the fact that he was like a player in La Liga and the championship. He was not just he came through, Espanol or like he was at Watford, he like played. And
he's basically like he's a couple knee injuries away from he would absolutely be a fixture at the top of European football. Like he would not be here without those couple of really big injuries. And that's not a knock on him or on the league at all. It's like the perfect confluence basically of opportunity for player and club. There have been times this season where Mark Navarro stands out like head and shoulders as technically and like physically the
so
best
obvious
player on the field. Like even when Locomotive is at their memeiest, like he looks absolutely like head and shoulders above. And some of the good where he's seeing stuff that other players aren't necessarily seeing. He probably should have 3 or 4 more assists than he does for the quality of delivery that he has. He's an unbelievable player.
yeah, like I was watching, I was like, yeah, Dolenmeyer was pretty good, like McHugh's pretty good, and then like like Navarro got the ball, and he had the ball at his feet, and it was pretty early on, and he started like kind of dribbling up because they kind of haven't played like a right center back, but also kind of a right back. It's whatever he
he's
feels
allowed to
like
carry
today.
the ball.
And he carries the ball up, and I was like, I was like, oh my god, that's who is like, why is this so good? And then because I knew he was really good, like I did the study, and then I forget anyway, that's a whole side tangent.
You kind of take it for granted sometimes when these guys like play in the league for a season and you're just like, yeah, they're a USL player. And it's like, yeah, this guy is like, I mean, he has a pretty different pedigree. And yeah, it just worked out that he was able to come to the league. I wish that the team around him was a little bit stronger so that he could, really show us what he could do each week, but is what it is.
Well, CLDR, after all that love, I am taking Charleston. It honestly,
smart money.
This one was hard for me. I really had a hard time because cross country travel is hard, and El Paso is a hard place to play. Like it's not an easy place to go to play, but part of it, I'm not going to lie, I think I got it in my head that Ben Pirmann was going to come on. I wish I could say I could take that bias out. I can't. But also, like, when Charleston are going, it's so hard to stop them. And right now, it feels like they're really going. The end of that Tulsa game, like, it just felt like they were just stomping the life out of Tulsa. And it was like, I would hate to be the team who plays them next. And I kind of had that thought, and it's El Paso. So I'm taking Charleston. Let's quickly keep it out west, and we are going to go aforementioned Phoenix versus Orange County, an Orange County team who, again, is still pretty good at the soccer thing as of recently, but they ran into a little old team called San Antonio, and San Antonio decided, hey, we're still good at this thing too. Although it could have been a very different game if a handball was called. You never know. San Antonio's winning that one. But Phoenix also looks like they're getting really back on track. Who gets it back on the rails completely and gets going down that playoff line?
I think I'm pushing back on the Orange County good at the soccer thing. Like 3 games winless, can't figure it out in the midfield. Got smacked by a San Antonio team that, say what you will, Alan Marcina game planned that game to perfection, but it's not like they've been the most consistent either as of late. I think I'm slightly worried about Orange County right now. What San Antonio did so well was transitioning from what was almost a 4-4-2 in defense into this front line that was so effective at creating these little overloads, forcing the back 4 of Orange County to get bent out of shape. If there's a team that can recreate that, it's Phoenix with Trejo and Ardiaga up top, Penos Armanakas in the channel feeding them. They really get the wingbacks involved when they're rolling. I think Phoenix has the attack to take control of this game, and they're going to get the 3 points here.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at a Phoenix team who are 7 matches unbeaten right now, and the last 5 matches they've played at home, they're still unbeaten. They've outscored their opponents 15-2 in that time. As John had mentioned, just Orange County not only winless in their last 3, they haven't scored in their last 3 games. You could nearly watch Titanic 1.5 times in that span, but there's so much going for Phoenix right now that I still feel like they're going to get the results here and honestly are going to roar into the playoffs as it currently stands as that dark horse team out west.
Yeah, I think Phoenix being at home helps them a lot here. There's a lot of variability in Phoenix performances at home versus away. I don't have the figure in front of me. I'm gonna get my intern on it, but the bottom line is that they've. I think that being at home gives them a big advantage. Orange County have obviously stumbled a little bit. I think El Paso can take a little bit of credit and kind of throw in a spanner in the works there of that first goalless draw, which has led to this run. But all that being said, I like Phoenix. I think they struggled to kind of get it going on the road against El Paso and really link their attack, but they still are dangerous regardless because of the weapons that they have up top. So even when they don't play particularly well, I think Guerra's finally got them in a place where they feel like they can win every single game that they play, which I don't think you've been able to say for his whole tenure. But this version of Phoenix is really dangerous, and they're meeting this Orange County team at basically the worst possible moment for OC.
Yeah, okay, full transparency. I did pick Orange County here, but I'm not fully believing. I'm going to be honest. I'm not, because I just want to read to you this midfield, a kind of midfield attack that they put on versus El Paso. Trejo, Harvey, Jose Hernandez, Armanakis, Arteaga. That is their 5 people going forward. That's disgusting. That's so gross. I hear what you're saying with the Phoenix has the best way of pretty much copying what San Antonio did. But those 4 goals, let's just talk about the goals that San Antonio scored. They aren't the highest quote unquote quality chances, like on a different day, they're going wide of the post. On a different day, there's a body in front of it. And I think if you're Orange County, you can say if we collect our defense a little bit better, if we go back to what we're kind of built on, which is a pretty good defense, we can do that. We can get in front of these balls. These are not goals if we are structured correctly. And I think that weirdly gives Orange County a little bit of confidence coming into this. That said, I don't fully believe my Orange County pick. I could totally see this turning into a blowout for Phoenix, but also if Orange County is going to get it right for the playoffs, it kind of has to be this game in my mind, and that's why I'm going with Orange County.
And real quick on just the weirdness there, where they've been missing Kyle Scott and Kevin Partita variously in the midfield. They just added Eric Lopez in goal. Colin Shuttler had been really good after whatever happened with Cody Cropper. They had Juan Santana for a couple of games, who's like an 18-year-old kid. And then they've got Lopez, who was bad for LA Galaxy too in the past couple of years. And he's bad in Orange County now. So goalies just vex me in this league in a lot of ways. But yeah, not great.
They could have had Richard Sanchez. He was right there.
Logan Ketterer is somewhere in Canada, if anyone's interested.
Logan Ketterer rocks.
He's one of the best on his day.
Well, too bad De Gea can't come over. Roster freeze and all. League won't allow it. So you think they would have been the rule if it was David De Gea said, "Hey, I'm playing for Orange County"? You think the league says, "We'll unfreeze for a minute"?
Yeah,
that'd be very MLS of them.
ESPN Plus revenue sharing from USL streaming.
Oh man! Final game of the night that we are going to predict is Greenville versus Northern Colorado. A Greenville team who, don't look now, are back in the playoffs. And for some people who do not follow League One religiously, they're like, Greenville is out of the playoffs? Yeah. And Northern Colorado kind of had it taken to them at home this last weekend. So this is a Greenville team that's running hot, a Northern Colorado team that they were going, and now they're kind of not. despite having a league leader in assists and goals don't seem to be happening versus a pretty good Greenville backline. Does Northern Colorado figure it out, or does Greenville march on through to the playoffs?
I'm liking the way Greenville's looking right now. Their offense has impressed me in the past 2 games because Harks is always going to have that defense, right? But getting consistent scoring has been the difference maker. These teams drew 0-0 last time they played over in Colorado, so I think that bodes well for Greenville. Just the weird tidbit that Eamon Zayed spent past Thursday, I think it was, getting in a nice long tweet back and forth complaining about how many penalties they've had called, like just asking me for what's the record and all sorts of things. Like, he can use Football Reference, not just me. So I think the Hailstorm don't have their head in the right place, and I'm going Triumph.
What a run of 3 games that Greenville has had at home over the past, or including this one, having been able to play North Carolina and Omaha in their previous 2 home games. In fact, taking defeats in both of those. But I really think Greenville having won these next 2 games is going to help ride the momentum against a Northern Colorado team, which every single week we kind of think which team is going to show up, the one that had that tremendous run of form throughout the season or the one that had that patchy run of form later on. I think Greenville, looking ahead for their next 3 games being all against eliminated teams, are going to basically want to take advantage of these final 4 games of the year, and they'll get the victory on this one and possibly take a home playoff game off of Charlotte or Northern Colorado.
Yeah, I have Greenville winning this one, mainly motivated by the fact that Northern Colorado have to travel there. I don't want to take away from the fact that obviously Trevor Amon, 20 goals in a USL League One season is insane. And they have like gotten goals from elsewhere. It hasn't necessarily been him, but when they win, it is him scoring. Like there is some almost like a direct correlation. And Greenville, like you said, tough opposition, tough place to go and get a win. They've got a couple of wins on the spin now, and I think really that travel is just the big thing facing Northern Colorado. But it is worth pointing out that before that loss at home to North Carolina, they had gone 8 unbeaten. So they have been in decent form, but I think the trip to Greenville is just a little too tall of a task with Triumph in the form they're in now.
I think now I don't want to act like I have been deeply engrossed into the tactics of Northern Colorado, because that would be a lie. But the biggest difference that I've seen in this Northern Colorado run is, frankly, they've been dropping Rogers really deep, and he's been kind of just playing right center back this like last few games. When before he was playing, I mean, he was basically a right winger at times, and he would occasionally drop to like a defensive mid almost location, not really getting all the way back as a fullback. And now they just have him sitting really deep. And I understand that he's probably the best player in the league. Is that a hot take? But he's you want him defending because he can do that. But also you're a team that's struggling to score goals where goals flow by the thousands in the league. Like, just accept that you're going to kind of give up goals because your goal in League One is to outscore everyone. That's kind of how League One works. Not perfect science, but pretty dang close. I'm taking Greenville. Greenville's going to be rocking. They are back in the playoff picture. That's a city that bleeds green and blue. I think that Northern Colorado, if they don't make the change and just frankly let Rogers cook, it's not going to work, because like they have just really shoved him back there. And now Amon's kind of lost almost all of his, basically who's been providing him all year long.
He played a little bit of center back in their hot run, but there's a correlation between him doing a lot more of that and them winning a lot less, if you ask me.
Someone who has not gotten a lot of love, maybe he would, if, we had Tyler that was on a little bit more, but I'd say it's Joff. Dude has been on a crazy streak lately. The fact that he went from like 0 goals in the first few games to now having 14, there was a real moment of like, is he going to catch him on? He's averaging dang near a hat trick these last like 10 games, and which is gross. He deserves a lot of love. I mean, he came on, and did he have a brace or was it a hat trick in the most recent game where he came in off the bench?
I think brace, but wild. Yeah.
He's in ridiculous run of form, and unfortunate that Lexington's not going to be making the playoffs because he's probably the last guy that you would like to see running into if you're a back line in League One right now. Lexington, with the way that he's running, is about to become spoiler maker to the absolute max. But I think that was my last USL thought, because that was just on the brain, because I was like looking at the scoring leaders and I was like, he has been on a ridiculous run.
Can I bring up one more League One thing?
Do it.
Red Wolves possibly joining the championship. What's up with that?
Yeah, probably is a beginning of the episode conversation, but
I know I didn't want to say it because it's like lengthy at this point, but
yeah, but like Pirmann with all that thing, but also it makes sense, but also I don't want, having spoken to people in their front office and all that kind of stuff, like they are building around the stadium. Part of what they are doing with that area is building up the area. Like they are building townhouses and shopping centers around the stadium. There's nothing around that stadium besides the interstate, and there are like empty townhouses that are ready to be moved into. That's what their plan is. Like they are planning to build like neighborhoods and stuff around the stadium, which is really cool. But they also, frankly, don't have a lot of people going to the game, right? And while, yeah, championship is a step up, maybe that brings some more people in because they can officially say we're in a higher league than Chattanooga FC. Also, is that really going to do it? I don't know.
It's right now, it feels almost like a war of attrition between CFC and Red Wolves are just hoping, like, and I'm saying this devoid of any like insider knowledge, devoid of any, this is purely my own whatever feeling about it, but it just feels like someone is trying to survivor, right? Outwit, outlast, whatever, and make it longer than the other team and be viable for longer and hope that the other team folds, because then they'll just kind of inherit whatever is left. I think the situation, though, in Chattanooga is different in that this won't be like Rio OKC energy, right? Where it's like Rio OKC folds. It wasn't that serious. Most of those fans become energy fans. Chattanooga FC fans are rabid. Like that fan base has built a lot of connection with their team. And I don't think there would be anything left if CFC were to fold, God forbid. Like, I really hope that doesn't happen. And if it were to happen, I don't think those fans start showing up to Red Wolves games in droves, because they will be seen as the ones who did it, right? Like, so I just think, like, I don't know what the plan is, and that's what whatever it really, because if they think they can like corner a significant part of the soccer market by going to the championship, like, good on them. I hope that that market exists and that they can like tap into that of fans who haven't been claimed already by Chattanooga FC. And I'm not sure if it is really realistic to expect that they're going to like hit some kind of like, strike oil of all these other like fans that haven't already been exposed to CFC. So I don't know. It's a tough one.
I think what's challenging when you look at teams wanting to move between the leagues is, like, I think we've seen it from nearly every USL 1 team has said at some point we would love to move into the championship, but just to feasibly have 2 leagues, not everyone can go up to the championship. That someone has to stay down in League One for us to have these 2 leagues, whether that means we're going to have to reorganize USL at some future date to get everyone structured into the league that they're supposed to go. or supposed to be in at some point. It's just, it seems like a lot of teams just have these lofty goals, and then it's just not as feasible, or just there is no financial backing to make it happen.
I mean, again, we could really talk for hours on this, but if we're being honest, we're talking about the health of both leagues, right? There was a lot of people who did this on the which USL opinion you have, has you like this, and it's the Patrick Sarmian. We posted on Twitter, really good interaction. Hey, thanks guys. Also, thank you Walking 90 for the inspiration. There was a lot of comments on there about how there are more championship teams that should be dropping down, and it's hard for me to disagree. Like there's a lot of teams that need to drop down for financial reasons, and they can move to a smaller stadium where they can fit the amount of fans that they have, and it's a better experience. It should not be going the other way around right now, at all.
My last hot take on the topic, in very brief, is the fact that the championship should go to a single table, and League One should be conferences and hold more teams. And this would go into what John talked about recently in that same meme, which is people aren't fans of the league, they're fans of their team. If the championship were 20 to 24 teams, it would be far more watchable, because you would have more ability to watch 10 games rather than watching a whole slate like John does each weekend of 30 something games. So the watchability of the league, all that sort of stuff, it all comes into it, and you're keeping the highest quality clubs in the championship, which, whatever mechanism you use for that, I think that's really what it comes down to. And I'm sure those are things that they've thought about, and they don't really know, how do you force someone down into League One is kind of the question. And maybe it's, do you have a baseball field, or do you have, there's all kinds of criteria you could use.
If only results on the pitch could be determined that.
Oh no.
That's bait.
Now, okay, I do want, again, this could end up just being a long conversation. We are running a long show, I get it. But with what John said, and I saw a lot of people comment, what does it matter? Who cares? How many people do you know just flip on an NFL game, that just turn on an NBA game, an MLB game, a college football game? They'll just turn it on. Who's playing? Oh, it's whatever team versus whatever team. Oh, are you a fan of whatever team? No. Why are you watching it? It's on. And I understand that part of that is an ESPN Plus thing. It's not like it's just on cable and you see it and go, ooh, that's on, right? But also, yeah, I mean, this is not, I don't want to say USL, because, I mean, that seems like a shot at Nicholas Murray, because he's the one that does a lot of their content. Nicholas does an incredible job, which, by the way, if you didn't read the Rondo today, wonderful. The weekly meme cracks me up every time. There's a lot of storylines out there that clubs themselves need to do a better job at pushing. And if clubs push it, fans will know, fans will tell other fans, people will turn into stuff, right? It's something that clubs themselves need to do. USL HQ, Nicholas Murray can only do so much, right, to tell you about the storylines, because he does his darndest. But clubs need to start doing it, because, yeah, I will just turn on Chattanooga versus Lexington, or I will just turn on, Monterey Bay versus Oakland, or whatever the match is, right? But we also have a show that's the USL show. I'm not the problem.
And to be totally clear, this is something that MLS struggles with too, and they're trying to figure out how to get people to watch teams other than their teams. Right. So
teams that aren't messy.
Yeah. I mean, basically at this point, but I think it's one of those things where when you think about the Premier League, how many people do you see, Twitter's probably the worst possible metric to measure by, but how many people do you see talking about whatever random game is on? Right. They're watching the league. It's not Fulham's on, I'm not watching this shit. People will just keep watching it. They'll watch it regardless. It's I'm a Liverpool fan, obviously. Manchester United and Chelsea play, I'm watching that game because I'm interested in what happens, right? I hate both those teams passionately. And I watch that game because I want to know what happens and what goes on. And to kind of what Andy's saying in the chat, like people don't necessarily watch USL games for context of what else is going on in the league. Like half of the time when you're talking to someone about what's going on in the league, it's like, you could be, you know, it's like, oh, you know, I thought they sucked because 2 years ago, like we beat them, you know, 5-0 or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, a lot's happened, you know? Anyways.
I mean, I think it's really about just not even in the sense of number of teams in the league. It's just like try and make the league a bit smaller, that every game people watch those games, like not just that you mentioned in the Premier League just because you're interested, but because it has an implication on their team. And whoever wins between Chelsea and Manchester United, for your example, would have an implication on both teams' and ambitions to possibly finish in the mid-table, or for Chelsea's case, avoid relegation. But
exactly.
But when you're looking at it from a USL perspective, to like what purpose does having Phoenix, Orange County play each other? How does that impact Tampa Bay and their table if you have two teams in separate conferences? We'll still turn it on. We'll still watch it. And I would encourage everyone just to watch that game because I think it'll be a good game. But to have that league, like not have your teams exist in its own little bubble that you only care about, whoever you're playing that upcoming week, would go a long way. And I do think the league, to their credit, tried to kind of bring everyone more inclusively into the league by having every team play every other team this season, which kind of helped you get around the entirety of the league.
For sure. Well, listen, we are an hour and a half into this show, and we still got to do final thoughts. So let's wrap it up. And if we want to continue reading on some hot takes next week from that post, we definitely can, because a lot of them will still be just as hot, just as spicy. John, final thoughts?
Yeah. Once again, if any Pirmann related people made it to the end, thank you, Paige, for helping set this up, Ben for coming on. Really appreciate it. In terms of just things, maybe thinking about going and seeing the remaster of Stop Making Sense in theaters. The Talking Heads live album that they're putting back out in 4K seems like a good time. Semi-fan of the Talking Heads. So, yeah.
Love it. Ryan?
Yeah, I haven't been able to watch too much outside of soccer lately since I've just been doing the move. It was funny every time I think about like how long I could have be doing other things when we're watching scoring and everything. I've spent 9 hours at the DMV over the past 2 days just to get a license plate and driver's license sorted after the move. It's done. I'm happy. It's
sorry. How long
behind.
is that in Lord of the Rings?
I was just going to say it's the entire extended edition trilogy.
You could listen to this episode 6 times. But like 9 hours, including getting turned away from the DMV after waiting 5 hours yesterday, all to do something that took 10 minutes. So that's been fun.
Phil?
I don't know. I'm going to be just trying to I'm going to be trying to cop that Charleston hoodie. That's what I'm, especially if they win, I'll have to like wear it while we record a Seriously Loco episode or something like that if they beat us. But I also, I guess in terms of non-soccer stuff, I haven't been keeping up with my shows the way that I should, but on Sunday I did go to a concert on Sunday, and I don't know how many people know that I've sort of eclectic music taste. So I saw a metalcore show, The Devil Wears Prada counterparts, Fit for a King, some pretty intense bands, but The Devil Wears Prada was like up and coming band when I was in high school in my formative years in the suburbs of Chicago as a, emo kid. So, and a scene kid. So yeah, I really enjoyed that one. They have matured quite a bit from their early releases, being a little bit more classic. And yeah, Andy, that was me. That was me punching your friends in the face in the pit. No, I'm totally like the old guy at the metal shows now where I go and I like get a drink and I stand off to the side and I just like enjoy the vibe live, but I definitely don't get into the into the pits these days. I got too much joint pain for that.
Speaking of concerts, a couple weeks ago, I said I was possibly going to go watch Peso Pluma in concert. That concert got canceled because he was in fear of his life for the cartel coming to Birmingham to kill him. So, I did not spend the money to go to that. So, I hope Peso Pluma is okay. But yeah, that never happened. This last week we've been continuing to watch Gilmore Girls, which I go through the thing of I watch 2 episodes, she watches 4, she catches me up on what I missed, and then we continue watching. My favorite way to watch series, to be honest. I get the cliff notes, I enjoy it. And I am about to figure out what high school away games are like as a band director. Apparently I'm not going to be getting home until 3:30 Saturday morning. So, and that's one of our closer away games. So I might be investing in a nice air mattress and sleeping out of school soon. So that should be fun. I'm having a blast. I love it here. Oh, some of my students have found our podcast. So if you made it to the end of this and you are going to my school, you should be studying. I see your grades. Second off, like if you're watching this during class, don't. That's a demerit. Third, like and subscribe. Hit that bell button. So
Bump those numbers up, baby.
Oh, wait, by the way, did Ben Pirmann think we get paid to do this?
Oh. And if anyone at Charleston has extra money laying around that they want to send to us, they are absolutely free to invest in the podcast in any way that they want. We will do straight up propaganda if they want.
Oh yeah,
free hoodies.
We are for sale.
All I need is the hoodie. I'll be honest. Yeah, like send me the hoodie. Like, don't even have to send me the kit. Like, give me a nice T-shirt. I'm in.
If I gotta
spread whatever propaganda of the battery you want.
I'll just say that any team listening, if you send me any free merch, I will absolutely shill for you. 100%.
Yeah, we got.
We
got Monterey Bay trading cards right here. This whole team set. Yeah,
it's over.
Where's Ryan going? Oh no,
I'm locking Monterey Bay to win this weekend.
Yeah, I know. I showed this. They sent me a scarf and everything.
Okay.
Oh, well, there you go. Throwback battery.
We got
good.
the throwback. Yeah.
Look, we will shill. Like it doesn't have
100%.
to be. It doesn't have to be money. Send me a sticker. I'm good. Like that's where I am.
Whoa. Okay. We can aim higher. We can aim higher than that.
You can aim higher. I have low standards. We are dissolving into madness, and even though he is not here, we miss him oh so dearly. Before this goes any farther, here's Alan's voice.
Thank you for watching another episode of the USL Show.
The USL Show is now proudly part of the Protagonist podcast family. Please go to protagonistsoccer.com to check out more work. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see everyone again next time.